The baptisms are absolutely exciting. It's why we do what we do. Today is a very special day. We're going to be interviewing David Heyting and Brian Dickinson is going to come up. These guys are best buds. What do you do? Let me ask you a question. What do you do when the worst happens in your life? What do you do when you come to that place where you're going, I don't know where to turn? What do you do when you're absolutely up against the wall and there are no answers? You just do not have anything. I don't know where to go. Doctors have run out. Money has run. Nothing will fix what you're going through. We're coming up on Easter here in just a few weeks, and it's the greatest day in the history of the universe. The greatest day. I don't know if Elon Musk is ever going to get to Mars or not, but that's a drop in all the oceans of the world in comparison to what Easter has done, where Christ, proved his lordship, and he promises life after death. We can't have life after this life. Jesus proved it in the resurrection. It's really exciting and cool. But before there was an Easter, there was an agony. Jesus hung on that cross. And while he was there, he said 7 different statements. What was it? What's the one that you remember? Just speak. It is finished. That's a good one. Yes. I thirst. No one got that one last hour. Thank you, Pastor Clint. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. I'll see you in paradise. Amen. Very first thing he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? But he was not the first one to say that. And he will not be the last one to say that. In fact, probably many of you in this room have said that. God, where are you? Maybe not exactly like Jesus said it, but God, where are you? God, how come I'm alone? God, how come you've abandoned me? God, how come I don't have any answers for what I'm facing? God, where are you when I need you the most? 1,000 years before Jesus said that on the cross, King David said it, and he penned it in Psalm 22. And Jesus is actually quoting from that psalm as he's fulfilling the prophetic word that King David had 1,000 years before. King David wrote it like this, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me? I don't have any answers, God. So far from my cries of anguish. My God, I cry out day and night. You can hear the pathos in his heart as he's crying out day and night, but God, you don't answer. You prayed that prayer when there's no answer? The ceilings are like, the ceiling is like brass of heaven. It hits and your prayers don't get through. Verse 11 goes on and says, do not be far from me, for trouble is near and there is no one to help. Verse 14, he goes on, I'm poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint. He was speaking metaphorically. You get the picture. It's when you're just out of sorts and there's nothing and no place you can turn. My heart is turned to wax. It's just melting. God, what's the deal? Verse 17 says, all my bones are on display. I'm down to nothing. People stare at me and gloat. Have you had that feeling? You feel like the whole world's staring at you? Oh, look at her. Oh, what happened to him? And you walk by and you just know that everyone's looking. Oh, man, they're in bad shape. And this morning, I want you to meet a couple of great members of our church, especially the one here on my left, David. Nice to see you. You made it up here. Is your microphone on? I have no idea either, but I'm not hearing you. Can you hear him? No. Yeah, good one, Brian. Oh, you got to get your mic over there. Ray's going to get it for you. It's tough being one-handed, isn't it? Yep. Oh, yep, you're not on.
I don't know how to do that kind of stuff. There we go.
Tell us your name.
My name's David Heyting.
David Heyting,
I
great.
know everybody says Heyting, but drop the E and then it makes sense.
No, you can't. I did. Yeah, it's like Martley Van Heerden back there. You got to drop a number of syllables in something. David Heyting. I got it right.
You got it right. Good job.
It took you a while to get up here, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you've been coming to Church on the Ridge for how long?
So my son, who was here last service, is now 20. So he was born in 2004, November. So the church started Easter of that year. And then at the time, my wife and I were going to Mill Creek Foursquare. And then we had a child, and we're like, okay, we can't keep driving that far. So then we had some friends who were like, yeah, this new church opened on the Ridge. And so we're like, okay, let's check it out. So we checked it out. And the funny part was this person meets us at the door.
Way to go, Jeff.
Jeff does do a great job, I'll say that.
Now, he wasn't here at that time.
No, he wasn't. That was pre-Jeff.
Yeah.
Although when he came, he joined our community group for a little bit, so I got to know him a little bit more at that point in time before he became
the great Jeff, yes.
The Jeff he is today. Anyhow, so this guy meets us at the door and was like, hey, are you new here? And we're like, yeah, we've never been here. And you have a newborn, because Colby was super young at the time. So we get the whole grand tour, and this was back at the old building.
Oh, yeah.
And so then we get to go look at the kids' room with all the amazing
play structure,
which I'm assuming is still here. I don't have young kids anymore.
Parts of it, yes.
Parts
Some
of it
made
are here.
it over.
So we're like, that's pretty cool. And granted, we had a newborn, but we're like, okay, this will be pretty fun. And there was like a lot of cool stuff, like mother's rooms and things like that. That were like, okay, this is pretty awesome. And then when we sit down, the preacher comes out, and we're like, oh my gosh, that's the guy who gave us the tour.
Introduce your friend to us. He needs no introduction. He's been up here before.
He's famous. This is Brian Dickinson.
Yeah.
So I always laugh, and all the pictures that you guys see of him on social media, a bunch of them I was actually with him, but he's the famous one. I'm the training partner. So we've been climbing for years together, so it's been great. And even before sort of my health, we'd meet pretty much every week to go for a hike or do something in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's been cool. So he's been a great friend to me and has helped me a lot through my struggles.
And we'll talk about your relationship here in a little bit more. But you didn't come to faith here at Church on the Ridge. Some cool things happened. But tell us a little bit about your background growing up and your church background.
So kind of growing up, a big part of my faith was my dad. So my dad grew up with an alcoholic father.
Yeah, right.
And kind of he had this choice, do I go down that path or do I change my path? And he actually chose to follow Jesus, which was huge for me, because it would have been easy for him not to do that. That was hard. And I'm sure all of his family was like, what the heck are you doing?
And you watched him make that transformation.
And I watched him make the choice.
And then fast forward to now you're in college, and what happens?
So a good buddy of mine who was part of Young Life called me up, and it was like, you have to come with me. He's like, I'm trying to check out this new trip called Beyond, which for the Young Life has a bunch of camps. And Beyond is where you basically go into the woods. And he was like, I have to do this before I can invite kids along. He goes, but you need to come. God's telling me I have to bring you. So I went with him and some other people who were really just trying to check it out to see what it was all about before they took kids there. And if you know what Beyond is, you're in British Columbia and you just go to the mountains that come out of the water. So I spent a week out there. Yeah. And at the time, so my dad was when I was in college, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Wow. So that had been a tough period for me. And that was partly why my buddy was like, you need to come with me. And then it was crazy because all this stuff happened that wasn't coincidence. Some of the people on the trip had dealt with their fathers having cancer. One, their father passed away. One, it was just diagnosed. So all these things happened. I was like, okay, this isn't happenstance. And then my buddy was like, you have to come, because I was kind of fighting him. And he's like, no, you're coming. He's one of those people who I've known forever. So I'm like, okay, if he tells me to do it, I'm going to do it.
That's great. We need good friends like that who will look us up and break through for us. And so you gave your life to Christ, and then you got the phone call when you were in college.
Yep. So I had to come home, and my mom had asked the doctor, I have a kid in school. What would you do? And the doctor said I would call him and tell him to come home now. So I got the call. So then I took a flight. I went to college just outside of Portland. So I got the flight back to Seattle, and then it was for weeks and weeks. Like my family lived in the waiting room of the hospital, just waiting. He was kind of touch and go for a long time.
Your sister's with you now, right? Wave your
she's down
hand.
here
God
somewhere.
bless you. But it's a great sister. And you told a funny story about, this series we're ending today on friendship, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But somebody sent you something while you were at the hospital that was just like, oh, made your day.
Yeah, so we'll talk, I think, about because one of the questions is if someone's going through something, how do you deal with them? What do you say? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm probably jumping forward.
That's all right.
But my response is there's nothing that's perfect, because a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to say anything because I don't know what to say. And my answer is just say something. It doesn't matter. It's just the thought that you're saying something rather than turning around and going the other way or something. So yeah, so my sister and I, we're super tight. So we're sitting there and living in this hospital, waiting room, and somebody sent us Cheese Whiz. Cheese Whiz and club crackers. And I have to say, that was like one of the greatest things ever, because we're sitting there, pretty depressed and down, and we're sitting there, eating Cheese Whiz. And I'll never forget that and it seems pretty stupid. You're like, okay, what a stupid thing to send somebody Cheese Whiz.
Whose dad is dying of cancer. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's kind of the thing that I would tell people when they say, okay, what do I do if I know someone who's going through a tough thing? You can send somebody Cheese Whiz. That seems so stupid and dumb, yet it made an amazing day on us, because we had so much fun, because things have been so negative.
Yeah. You started coming to church on the Ridge. Here's one of your early pictures that we have in our church directory. Can you throw the picture of his family? Yeah, there it is. Look at that beautiful family, 2 little kids, and you're coming to church on the Ridge, but you're not all in yet. What was going on in your life?
So when I was on the mountain in British Columbia, I felt like God basically told me that my dad was going to die, and he did eventually pass away from cancer.
At 51 years old.
At 51. Yeah. And so part of my thing was, I was like, okay, you need to get baptized. And I fought that for years and years and years.
You're coming here, and you're leading a community group.
Yeah, I led a community group for just many, many years.
And we're going through a book called Soul Revolution. Anybody remember that book, 66, The Experience of Soul Revolution? All right, he was one of the inaugurated that thing, helped us, perfect it as we move along.
Yeah, so I was meeting with a good friend, and we were going through that together.
You got a running partner and the whole deal?
And one of the hard parts was that last 10%. And what I realized is I was holding off on this because I never felt like I was perfect or good enough to get baptized. And I realized then finally through praying and stuff together, the answer I got was, don't be stupid, just go forward and I'll take care of everything. So I felt like Jesus was saying, dude, just do it and then I'll take care of the rest, but you need to make the first step. And I had sat there for years saying, I'm not perfect, but the reality is nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
So don't let that hold you back. Don't let something kind of stupid be a stumbling block to making the step.
Yeah, it's great. So your family's part of the church. Your wife taught in our preschool. In fact, she probably taught some of these kids about Jesus that we heard get baptized.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah, and what do you do for a living?
I'm a CPA.
Yeah, great.
Bean counter.
Yes. Well, it's an important job,
yep.
Right? Yes. But you're also this outdoors guy, and you got this buddy Brian, who you and him have traveled the world together. Fast forward now, you're living life, and what happened in? Show the next slide. Yeah. This is some of your outdoor exploits. Talk about some of those, because you're a stud, man. Brian and you took me to Mount Rainier, and we're going to do, go to 10,000 feet because you thought the pastor will take care of it, right? And I've got my stuff. We're gonna hike up and ski down, and I got my stuff, and I get about 200, 300 steps, and my backpack is weighing me down. I can't carry stuff, and this guy, unbelievable. Hey, Charlie, let me take that. He puts it on his back. We get another couple hundred steps. Hey, let me take that. By the time I'm holding my sandwich, is about all I got when we get to the top.
Humility was learned that day by Pastor Charlie, because he did not like that very much, but it helped him go further. which is a tough thing to realize, but sometimes you have to be humble, and then people can help you, and you go a lot further than if you try to do it yourself.
And right now in your life, you are forced, you told me you can't even zip up your jacket.
Yep.
And when I say forced, you already knew that message of humility, that lesson of humility. And it has allowed you to allow others to be a blessing to you when you can't do it yourself. And you've hiked some of the tallest peaks. And all of a sudden, you and Brian, you want to share anything? You've got this guy. Is he a stud?
Yep. Yeah, I've climbed all around the world, soloed Everest. It takes a team. It takes trust. There's no one I trust more, and I've climbed with you, and those are complete opposite.
You put it, Charlie, at the end of the rope, and pray.
No, not at the end. That's too dangerous. We put you in the middle so we can watch you.
Wherever. I think at one point he carried me on his back, and that was like, okay.
Well, even through chemo, I remember, like, we would get out, and he's like still stronger than anybody. I'm like, we're getting on some sketchy things,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, if you fall, your mom's gonna kill me, because it'll be my fault.
Something began to take place in your body physically as you'd start to get to altitude. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so in 2010, I started having, altitude sickness pretty bad. So my joke.
Describe that, because most of us have never been
basically when you
high
go
enough.
up high, it puts pressure on your brain and your skull. So, I had, as we'll get to in a second, I had a tumor growing there, so it would put pressure. So there's no place for things to go because I had a massive tumor in my head. And so I started getting headaches, and puking was my big thing. So I used to joke that I was going to try to puke on all 7 continents. I didn't quite get there, but I puked a lot. And one of the bummers was we went to Elbrus in Russia together, which is the highest mountain in Europe. And I got to 16,500 feet, which is a lot taller than Rainier. And I just started puking my guts out. And I had this rule that if you puke, if you just can't puke 30 minutes after. So if you start puking every 30 minutes, you need to get off the mountain immediately. And so I was puking too close to each other. So I had to get down. So I had to go back down. So I missed this opportunity. We fly to Russia, kind of once in a life opportunity to go climb this mountain. And I had to turn around because I just couldn't do it because the altitude was destroying me. So.
You also lit the tent on fire.
Yeah, I don't tell that story, but yeah. When I came back, nobody was helping me cook get the stoves going, and I did start a tent on fire.
That's not part of this story.
Do you want me to go sit down?
You're in 2011 November. You're having coffee. What happened there?
So I'm in a Starbucks. I'm with a coworker, and we're trying to meet with a new possible client. So we're sitting there, and then I had a grand mal seizure, which, if you don't know, a grand mal seizure, basically you go black and pass out, and then you end up on the floor, and then when you think of a seizure, you think someone convulsing. So I'm doing that in the middle of a Starbucks. I was at the U Village, so they took me to University of Washington Hospital, which wasn't very far away. So I woke up in the ambulance, and the people were telling me what happened, and I had no clue what was going on.
And the doctor comes in. Can we show the next slide?
So then they said, okay, we're going to do these tests. So I had an MRI done a little bit later.
Is there a tennis ball over there, Brian? Oh, throw that up here, sis. Thanks.
And so that's the size of the tumor that they found in my head. And the funny moment was I go in there after the scan, and there's just a radiologist, or not he's a neurologist, but he seemed like he was fresh out of school. So he's trying to say these words to me. And I'm like, okay, you don't have to sugarcoat this. I see this scan, and that thing is huge. And I know that's not supposed to be that way. So just get to the point. So finally he got to the point. He was just trying to be nice. And I was like, dude, that's bad. Just tell me. So then I went and talked to the neurosurgeon, and they're like, okay, we just need to get this thing out. So then within a couple of weeks, I go into surgery, which you can if you look closely, you can see my scar from the surgery.
Before go back one slide. There we go. we got the news, you're going in for surgery. This is him and his family. Before that, we brought you up here, back in the old building again, and prayed over you. We're believing God. Hey, we believe in a miracle-working God. We believe that God can heal the sick. We read it in the Bible, and we see it. And so we did all the things right. The Bible says to pray, anoint with oil, pray the prayer of faith, get the elders to lay hands. We did all that, and yet, go to the next slide there. Yeah, they cut you open.
Yep.
And talk to us about what they had to do.
So they, went in there, took the tumor out. They couldn't get all of it, so there was still a little bit of tumor left. And typically, if you want to have complete healing from a brain tumor, they have to get 100% of it. They didn't get 100% of it because usually it gets up to or grows into some of your healthy tissue in your brain. They only could cut so far.
So then it's some treatments, right? Okay, we can't get it all through surgery, so we're going to have to...
chemo was the next thing. So I instantly went on chemotherapy for the fall. After that, I had surgery in November, and then December I started chemotherapy for a year.
And not only chemo, but radiation.
Yeah, so that was... So we did chemo, and then a little bit later, we did radiation. And that's a picture of, so when they do it, they have to measure especially with your brain.
Does that go on your face or your head?
That goes over my face.
Wow.
And then they basically map your whole brain, and they figure out where you can see that little
the X there?
X there, that's where they would shoot the radiation through to hit the tumor and only the tumor, just because they don't want to radiate other parts of your brain, obviously.
And eventually, do you have the one that says it's, the name of it? Where's that slide? Yeah, that one here. So, Lucky, I don't know why Lucky's up there, but again, it's Marty's last name. How do you say that word?
Oligodendroglioma.
Yeah, okay.
And the reason I say I'm lucky is so I was given 12 years to live at that point in time, and that's never perfect, so never believe what they say on that always. But a lot of tumors, are way, way worse, and people can barely live 2 years past that. So
glioblastoma is the one. We've had a number of families in the church.
So if you have that, there's 2 out of 5 people live more than 2 years. So that one's really, there's basically really not a whole lot of hope there. Whereas mine was a grade 2, so it was a slower growing, and they actually felt like thought that it had been growing for quite some time.
So 12 years, who knows from when it starts growing or when they find it or whatever. But you have beat that because we're at 13 now.
I'm at 13, yep.
And yeah. And many of you remember when David came and they said, hey, this thing is shrunk, looks good, you know, praise God, and here we rejoice as a church. And you go through a number of years where you and Brian are back hiking together.
Yeah, I was back climbing again and doing fun stuff.
Show that tiger's tooth, or what is that called?
Shark fin tower.
Yeah, shark fin. Okay, whatever. Tiger's tooth. And Brian would not take me up that one, nor would you, but love you guys anyway.
But it was great because I got to get out there, and then I shared the love of my climbing with both my kids. I've got 2 boys.
Who were 4 and 7 when you were diagnosed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then they started to go out with me in the woods, and we had a blast. So for me, I got a lot of extra time with them.
Yeah.
That possibly I shouldn't have gotten.
And then in about a year and a half ago, you go from feeling strong, working, just doing everything, living life, and helping your boys.
I went out. So kind of the story is, we were down in Sun River, my whole family. So my 2 boys and I went for like a 16-mile trail run, and then the next day we go to ski. And I'm at Mount Bachelor, and about halfway through our day, I look at my boys and I'm like, something is wrong. I think I forgot how to ski because something is wrong. And I couldn't make my left leg move the way it was supposed to. And then by the end of the day, I couldn't stand up. I just kept falling because my left leg wasn't working. And then I had to go down a green run. So I'm not a great skier, but I can definitely ski a green run.
You are a great skier. You skied down Rainier and helped me get down, so you're amazing. Brian, you watched your friend go from cancer to, hey, I'm back, and then back to not great again. What was going through your heart as just seeing your buddy go through that?
Yeah, I guess what anyone would, it's so frustrating from the outside looking in, but just seeing how strong he is, how anchored his faith is, and but there have been times where even mentally, emotionally, and I'm not empathetic, and he knows he'll always get that from me. So I'll tell him how it is, and whether he likes it or not, I think he likes it.
Go to the next slide with the walker, because a guy who's climbing some of the toughest mountains in the world and then going to a walker. Let's be honest, you love Jesus, right?
Yep.
Talk about the stillness of the night when you're looking up at the ceiling and you know that you can't even put on your jacket. What are you saying to God in those moments?
I was pretty angry, and every night, because this happened.
Hang on. Did you hear what he said? He was angry. It's okay to be angry with God. Come on. What's going on? You're angry, you're saying what?
So every night. I actually moved into, so my oldest kid's in college, and he spoke earlier today with me, but he had to drive back to school because he's on spring break.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I just moved into his room because I needed more space because I wasn't comfortable, and there's positions I can do because basically my left side of my body doesn't work, and my blood flow is awful, so I get a lot of pain throughout.
And what they're saying is that the tumor is growing back or growing larger.
Yeah, so basically the tumor overnight exploded and caused all this
left side paralysis.
So then I'm sitting basically in my kid's room because it was just easier for me to go in there. And every night, basically my prayer every night was, heal me or kill me.
God, heal me or kill me. Yeah.
I just didn't want to be in the stage I was at.
You have had the opportunity to speak to different groups of people, not of faith, out in the secular world, who are going through some challenging times, cancer and different things. And you got 3 messages for them that are pretty profound. Share those with us this morning.
Be your own advocate. So if you have any kind of health issue, you have to fight for what you need.
Yeah.
Too many times the doctors just say, this is what we're going to do. And it's never a one-size-fits-all. And my favorite story of that was post-surgery, I started chemo, and then they brought a radiologist, and he's like, we need to do radiology. We need to radiate you right now. And I do my unofficial research because I've got a lot of connections in the brain
cancer. Talk to Dr. Google. Any of you been to Dr. Google? Yeah, okay.
So I contacted people, and everybody was like, well, after about 10 years, when you radiate someone's brain, that they would have cognitive issues.
Wow.
And that's the thing I've been afraid of. And that's been my biggest fear, is cognitive issues. Fortunately, I've been good, I think. I don't know. Other people might say, yeah, this guy's messed up.
Ask Brian. Brian?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
So I'm arguing with this doctor who was getting mad at me. He's like, well, you need to do this. So finally I said, can you guarantee me that I won't have cognitive issues after 10 years? Because I'm basically saying I'm going to live 12 years at least. And he goes, no, I can't say that. And I'm like, okay, you answered my question. I'm not going to do this.
Right.
And then eventually I did have radiation years later, but it was a different type. So the stuff I just called the proton radiation. So it goes and it hits and it stays, whereas the original stuff goes and it just goes everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if you radiate my brain, you're not radiating the tumor, you're radiating my entire brain. So that was one part where and even now I argue with my doctors all the time. And now a lot of them are like, you know what, just do it. Just do what you want to do. You know yourself better than we do.
The other thing that you tell people is to believe that you're the exception.
Yeah, you have to be the exception, because if you're not the exception, you might as well quit.
Yeah. And when you talk to, it's good, when you talk to a group like this, we talked about, hey, what do you want people to walk away from after hearing your story? And I love it. You said, very similar, stay positive.
Yep.
Right? The second thing was you're here for?
Yeah, you have to believe that you have a purpose.
And your purpose that you've been holding on, Cade, your youngest, graduates from high school
in June, so I have to at least be alive to watch him graduate. That's been more of the short-term goal.
And you also said that you don't know what that purpose is at some level, right?
Yeah, I feel like I'm supposed to have some kind of purpose, but I have no idea what it is. Nor do I think I'll ever know. Maybe someday in heaven, but I don't know what it's going to be.
But cancer, brokenness, puking on a mountain, it doesn't matter. God, I want to walk out my purpose.
Yep.
And the third thing really fits with this series. You talked about having friends.
Yep.
And this is where Brian and so many others come in. What is just a simple thing that Brian has done with you?
Honestly, just called me up and grabbed me and taken me for a ride or walked. So after surgery, I had a lot of issues spatially. So just having people take me outside for a walk was awesome. And then now he'd pick me up, take me for a walk. We'd go get some coffee or something. It was just good to have, and honestly, to have people reaching out, because one of the things people ask, well, how can you help people? For me, I get overwhelmed because there's so much going on. So if someone contacts me and says, I'm coming over, I'm going to grab you, because I haven't been driving for a lot. I mean, I just started driving again, but there's been huge periods in my life where I haven't been driving. Because if you're constantly having seizures, you're not supposed to drive for 6 months.
Yeah.
So a bunch of my time, up until recently, I wasn't driving. So I feel like, I'm still working, but I'd work from home, and I feel like I'm a prisoner of my house because I can't really leave except for I go around my block, and my block gets old walking around the block.
Yeah.
So...
Go ahead and put that verse back up. Psalm 38 says this, my friends and companions avoid me. Because of my wounds, my neighbors stay afar off. Your wound can be an emotional wound. You can have a death in the family. And you all have been there. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to approach the person. So we do what we do, and we don't say anything, and we stay far away. How do you want people to approach you? How do you want people, they look at your head and they go, dude, this guy's been through it. They know your story. I don't know what to say.
You can just say hi. It's great to see you. But I do think people are paralyzed. They're out, someone's going through a tough time. I don't know what to say, or they're looking for the perfect thing to say, but I'll be honest, there is no perfect thing to say because it doesn't exist.
Are you offended if somebody says something stupid?
No. So one of my favorite stories ever, so when my dad was dying, because I think I mentioned, so he did pass away from cancer when he was 51.
Is this the Cheesewood story?
Yeah, so we're sitting,
we shared it earlier.
Yeah, my family and I lived in the hospital, waiting room for weeks and weeks and weeks. And so someone brought Cheese Whiz, and my sister and I, were depressed and down.
Yeah.
And you're sitting in a hospital, which is just a horrible place to be. And so someone brought Cheese Whiz, so we're goofing off with our Cheese Whiz all day, and honestly, it was just, I'll never forget that, because it was this uplifting thing. And I'm like, how stupid is that? It was Cheese Whiz, but yet that made our day awesome.
Don't hold back when someone is going through it. They're not hearing from God. They're wondering where God's at. The thing about David is he's not given up in his walk with God. You're holding on to him in the midst of it. Doesn't mean you're not angry. Doesn't mean you don't have questions. I like what Peter told Jesus when he said, Jesus, where else can we go? Who else has the words of life? And you've been like that. You've been a Peter. Brian, what would you tell somebody who is feeling reticent to walk with somebody around the block?
Yeah, it's tough because I've been there. Everyone's been there. If someone's dealing with a death or an illness or anything, you got to get out of your own way. It's okay. Even if you say the wrong thing, at least you're saying something.
Yeah.
It's just being present.
You're walking the rest of this journey with Jesus?
Trying as best I can.
Yeah. We are trusting that the new chemo that you're on is going to do what the last one did or whatever, and this thing's going to shrink again, because when it shrinks, what happens?
I regain.
Yeah, you get feeling back on your left side. And
yeah, I can use.
Yeah.
So right now my arm, so a couple months ago it was shrinking a little bit, and I had use of my arm again, and now it's back to, I laugh because sometimes this is how I move my arm, and I can kind of do this, but it's hard. And my leg's been okay, and I've worked really, really hard to keep my leg working. Well, lots of physical therapy, because my vision is, if my leg works, that's more important than my arm, because I can survive, because the right side of my body is totally normal and strong.
Yeah.
So I'm like, as long as that works, I can do a lot of stuff. But if my leg doesn't work, then that's really bad, because I'm not walking.
You are been a part of this church since its inception.
Pretty much.
2004, yeah. And you're part of our family. And family, let's be that. Let's be those people who lean in and don't run away because, oh no, David's, he's getting worse. Oh no, this may be. All the stuff goes through your head. But as a brother, we love you. Thank you for being brave to share. And I'd like you to Just give him a hand. Thank you for coming. In that psalm that I mentioned earlier, it says in verse 22, I will declare your name to my people. In the assembly, I will praise you. This is what David has chosen to do. Here we are in the assembly. I will declare your name to God's people. You who fear the Lord, praise him. What's that next verse? But you, O Lord, do not be far away from me. You are my strength. And that's the cry of his heart. Come quickly, Lord, and help me. You are my strength, though. Now, what do you do when you're in the night? You're not hearing from God. The heavens are brass. Your prayers aren't getting through. Here's what you do. You praise him anyway. You worship anyway. Ray, where's the team? Come on up here. We're gonna do that now. We're going to stand together, and we're going to tell God how great he is. Come on, let's stand up. Everyone's around. Ray, team's going to come. David, thank you again, my brother. We love you, and you're going to exit on this side, right? We only have rails on the right side. Brian, you're going to help him down? Thank you.